Now we have the SRV directory. The /SRV directory contains data for services provided by the system. For example, if you were using the Apache HTTP server to serve a website, you'd likely store your website's files in a directory inside the /SRV directory. Next we have the media directory. The /media directory contains subdirectories where removable media devices inserted into the computer are mounted. For example, when you insert a CD into your Linux system, a directory will automatically be created inside the /media directory. You can access the contents of the CD inside this directory.
We now go to the media directory and list its contents. Since our computer didn't have any media devices connected to it, the ls does not show any contents in the media directory.
Now we have the MNT or the mount directory. MNT directory is used for mounting file systems. These are used, for example, if the system uses multiple hard disks or hard disk partitions. Now we have the OPD directory. The /OPD directory contains subdirectories for optional software packages. It is commonly used by proprietary software that doesn't obey the standard file system hierarchy. Next we have the proc directory. Proc is just a virtual directory. It documents status info about the kernel and processes in the form of text files. Only root users have access to this directory.
We now go to the proc directory and list its contents using the ls command. It contains various commands like tty and files like crypto, and it also contains vmstat that contains information about CPU processes, memory, etc.
Next we have the Sbin Directory. It contains essential binaries that are generally intended to be run by the root user for system administration. For example, iwconfig, ifconfig, reboot, etc. are included in this directory.
We now go to the Sbin directory, that is the system binary files, and list its contents. The Sbin directory contains the reboot command that is used to reboot the system. It also contains the command iwconfig that is used to configure wireless networks, and the command power off.
Next we have the temp or the TMP directory. Programs and applications use TMP to store temporary files during execution. This directory is generally cleared on system reboot.
We now go to the temp directory that contains the temporary files and list its contents. These are the contents of the temp directory.
Now we have the user or the USR directory. The USR directory contains applications and files used by users as opposed to applications and files used by the system. The user directory also contains other directories. For example, we have the /user/share, which has architecture independent files like graphics, etc. Next we have the USR/bin. Non-essential command binaries, which are not needed in single user mode, are included in this directory. Next we have the /user/lib, which contains libraries for binaries. Next we have the /user/sbin, which again consists of non-essential system binaries, for example census detect, user add, ARP, etc. Next we have the USR/SRC, which stores the source code. Next we have the USR/local. Tertiary hierarchy for local data specific to this host is stored here. IT is used by the system administrator when installing software locally.
We now go to the user directory and list its contents. These are all the subdirectories within the user directory. We also use the command ls-l to display the directories along with their respective permissions and date and time of creation.
Next we have the var directory. This directory contains all the variable files whose content is expected to continually change during normal operations of the system. For example, logs, spool files, temporary email files, etc. Now the subdirectories that we have here are lib, log, run, www, temp, spool, etc. The lib subdirectory contains the persistent data which is modified by programs as they run that pertains to one specific host. For example, databases, OpenOffice, etc. The log subdirectory contains various log files, the file to which a computer system writes a record of its activities. For example, DMESG. Next we have the run subdirectory. Information about running systems since last reboot. Files under this directory must be cleared, that is removed or truncated as appropriate at the beginning of the boot process. Next we have the www subdirectory, which has the website file hierarchies, default location for websites served by Apache. The temp subdirectory contains temporary files to be preserved between reboots, and the spool subdirectory contains data waiting to be processed. For example, unread mail, news, and printer queues. And thus, this is what we call the inverted tree structure.
We now go to the var directory that contains variable files and list its contents. It contains the subdirectory temp. It also contains the command log and an executable data file crash.
Root directory. It is the starting point of a directory structure. Boot, place where Linux keeps information that it needs when booting up. etc directory. The configuration files for the systems are stored here. Bin directory. This directory contains programs binaries for the system. User. This directory contains user applications and a variety of other things like source code, pictures, docs, or config files. Lib directory contains shared libraries for programs that are dynamically linked, similar to DLLs. Home directory. This is where users' personal file gets stored. Root, the super user's home directory. Do not confuse this with the root directory of the Linux system. Var. This directory contains variable data that changes constantly when the system is running. TMP. Temporary files of a program are stored here. DEV. Devices are treated like files and you can write and read like they were files. MNT. This directory is used for mount points. The different physical storage devices must be attached to some directory in the file system tree before they can be accessed. Proc. It contains information about the kernel itself.